Thank you for joining Wars of the Rosies as we continue with part 16, The Point Within a Circle, of the Symbolism of Freemasonry by Albert G. Mackey. Chapter 15, The Point Within a Circle. The point within a circle is another symbol of great importance in Freemasonry, and commands peculiar attention in this connection with the ancient symbolism of the universe and the solar orb. Everybody who has read a Masonic monitor is well acquainted with the usual explanation of this symbol. We are told that the point represents an individual brother, the circle the boundary line of his duty to God and man, and the two perpendicular parallel lines, the patron saints of the order, St. John the Baptist and St. John the Evangelist. Now, this explanation, trite and meager as it is, may do very well for the exoteric teaching of the order, but the question at this time, not how it has been explained by modern lectures and Masonic system makers, but what was the ancient interpretation of the symbol, and how should it be read as a sacred hieroglyphic in reference to the true philosophic system which constitutes the real essence and character of Freemasonry. Perfectly to understand this symbol, I must refer, as a preliminary matter, to the worship of the phallus, a peculiar modification of sun worship, which prevailed to a great extent among the nations of antiquity. The phallus was a sculpted representation of the membrum virum, or male organ of generation, and the worship of it is said to have originated in Egypt, where, after the murder of Osiris by Typhon, which is symbolically to be explained as the destruction or deprivation of the sun's light by night, Isis, his wife, or the symbol of nature, in the search for his mutilated body, is said to have found all the parts except the organs of generation, which myth is simply symbolic of the fact that the sun having set, its fecundating and invigorating power has ceased. The phallus, therefore, as the symbol of the male generative principle, was very universally venerated among the ancients, and that too as a religious rite, without the slightest reference to any impure or lascivious application. The exhibition of these images in a colossal form, before the gates of an ancient temple, was common. Lucian tells us of two colossal phalli, each 180 feet high, which stood in the forecourt of the temple at Hierapolis. Mayer, in his Ancient Art and Its Remains, on the authority of Leek, the fact that a colossus phallus, which once stood on the top of the tomb of the Lydian king Haliates, is now lying near the same spot. It is not an entire phallus, but only the head of one. It is 12 feet in diameter below, and 9 feet over the glans. The phallus has ever been found. So universal was this worship among the savages of America. Dr. Althought discovered, in the year 1790, a marble phallic image in a cave of the island of St. Domingo. He is supposed by some commentators to be the god mentioned under the name Baal Peor in the Book of Numbers, as having been worshipped by the idolatrous Moabites. Numbers 25, 1-3. See Psalms 106:28. They joined themselves also unto Baal Peor, and ate the sacrifices of the dead. The last expression, according to Russell, has a distinct reference to the physical qualities of the matter, and to the time when death, by the winter absence of the solar heat, gets, as it were, possession of the earth. Baal Peor was, he says, the sun exercising his powers of fecundity. Connection of sacred and profane history. Among the eastern nations of India, the symbol was prevalent under the name of lingam, but the phallus or lingam was a representation of the male principle only. To perfect the circle of generation, it is necessary to advance one step further, Accordingly, we find in the ties of the Greeks and the yoni of the Indians a symbol of the female generative principle of coextension prevalence with the phallus. The ties was a circular or concave pedestal or receptacle on which the phallus or column rested, and from the center of which it sprang. Sanarat observes that the professors of this worship were of the purest principles and most embellished conduct, and it seems never to have entered into the heads of the Indian legislator and people that anything natural could be grossly obscene. Sir William Jones remarks in his Asiatic Researches 254 that from the earliest periods the women of Asia, Greece, and Italy wore the symbol as a jewel, and Clavel tells us that a similar usage prevails at this day among the women in some villages of Brittany. Seeley tells us that the lingam, or Indian phallus, is an emblem as frequently met with Hindustan as the cross is in Catholic countries. Wonders of Allura, page 278. The union of the phallus and ties, or the lingam and yoni, in one composite figure as an object of adoration was the most usual mode of representation. This was in strict accordance with the whole system of ancient mythology, which was founded upon a worship of the prolific powers of nature. All the deities of pagan antiquity, however numerous they may be, can always be reduced to the two different forms of the generative principle, the active or male and the passive or female. Hence the gods were always arranged in pairs, as Jupiter and Juno, Bacchus and Venus, Osiris and Isis. But the ancients went further, believing that the procreative and productive powers of nature might be conceived to exist in the same individual. They made the odor of their deities hermaphrodite, and used the Greek term, or male virgin, to denote the union of the two sexes in the same divine person. Is there not a seeming reference to this thought of divine hermaphrodism in the well-known passage of Genesis? So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And so being created, male and female, they were in the image of God. Thus, in one of the Orphic hymns, we find this line: Jove was created a male and an unspotted virgin. And Plutarch in his tract on Isis and Osiris says, God who is a male and female intelligence, being both life and light, bring forth another intelligence, the creator of the world. Now, this hermaphroditism of the supreme deity was again supposed to be represented by the sun, which was the male generative energy, and by nature, or the universe, which was the female prolific principle. And this union was symbolized in different ways, but principally by the point within the circle, the point indicating the sun and the circle the universe. Invigorated and fertilized by his generative rays, and in some of the Indian cave temples, this allusion was made more manifest by the inscription of the signs of the zodiac on the circle. The world being animated by man, says Kreuzer in his learned work on symbolism, received from him the two sexes, represented by heaven and the earth. Heaven, as the fecundating principle, was male, and the source of fire, the earth, as the fecundated, was female, and the source of humidity, all things issued from the alliance of these two principles. The vivifying powers of the heavens are concentrated in the sun, and the earth, eternally fixed in the place which it occupies, receives the emanations from the sun through the medium of the moon, which sheds upon the earth the germs which the sun has deposited in its fertile bosom. The lingam is at once the symbol and the mystery of the religious idea. So far, then, we arrive at the true interpretation of the Masonic symbolism of the point within the circle. It is the same thing, but under a different form, as the Master and the Wardens of the Lodge. The Masters and the Wardens are symbols of the sun, the Lodge of the universe or world, just as the point is the symbol of the same sun and the surrounding circle of the universe. but the two perpendicular parallel lines remain to be explained. Everyone is familiar with the very recent interpretation that they represent the two saints, John, the Baptist and the Evangelist. But this modern exposition must be abandoned if we desire to obtain the true ancient signification. In the first place, we must call to mind the fact that, at two particular points of his course, the sun is found in the zodiacal signs of Cancer and Capricorn. These points are astronomically distinguished as the summer and winter solstice. When the summer is in these points, he has reached his greatest northern and southern declination and produces the most evident effects on the temperature of the seasons and on the length of the days and nights. These points, if we suppose the circle to represent the sun's apparent course, will be indicated by the points where the parallel lines touch the circle, or, in other words, the parallels will indicate the limits of the sun's extreme northern and southern declination when he arrives at the solstitial points of Cancer and Capricorn. But the days when the sun reaches these points are, representatively, the 21st of June and the 22nd of December, and this will account for their subsequent application to the two saints John, whose anniversaries have been placed by the church near those days. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Rosies. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.